Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We find ourselves today in 2021 honoring the 20th anniversary of the Least Developed Countries Expert Group. And this is going to be the start of a year-long celebration. I am very pleased to see many of our current LEG members here in the room. Please get up from your seats for a moment so we all see who you are. Please, LEG members. Thank you very much. A lot has happened in these 20 years on professional and personal levels, at international and national scales. LEG members have come and gone. We went from supporting urgent and immediate needs, which is the NAPAs, to medium and long-term planning for adaptation. The Paris Agreement was adopted with the global goal on adaptation, expedited support for the formulation and implementation of national adaptation plans and the global stocktake. At the same time, very sad statistics of climate change implications highlight the continued vulnerability of our countries to climate impact. WMO's Atlas of Mortality and Economic Losses from Weather, Climate and Water Extreme for the period of 1970 to 2019 found that of all of deaths from weather, climate and water hazards, 91% occur in developing economies. And more recently, again, on professional and personal levels, we were challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on our lives, which, as we all know, not only prevented us from meeting in person between the COP in Madrid and now, but also threw our countries back in their efforts for greater food security, education, and overall well-being of our people as the pandemic evolved into an economic crisis. Nevertheless, we are incredibly happy to stand here today in front of you and to be able to celebrate in person a big milestone for the LDCs. These past 20 years of adaptation support of the LEG, and to also reflect together which priorities the LEG should tackle over the next 10 years. Considering the continuing challenge that our countries and the people keep facing, exacerbated by climate change impact, the work of the LEG and the support for adaptation to LDCs is of paramount importance. We want to use this opportunity at COP26 to remember the LEG's greatest successes, exchange views, and hear about current challenges, evolution, and opportunities on the horizon. Dear guests and colleagues, now I have the honor to invite Mr. Fendo Chering, LDC Group, to share his opening remarks. Mr. Chering, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. distinguished members of LDC expert group, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of LDC group, I would like to express our sincere thanks to the Lake for the invitation to the 28th anniversary celebration. Please allow me to reiterate our continued pride in the work of the Lake in supporting the LDCs to tackle the issues of climate change. Their work is a testament to their commitment, and I wish to register my personal support towards making it a reality and to call upon all of you to do so. My group has been proactive in ensuring the Lake mandate is extended. We have requested a 10-year extension to give Lake the opportunity to plan ahead and develop its work plan accordingly. We have also requested additional members to the Lake so that the group has increased capacity and bandwidth to support the needs and priorities of LDCs. We note with appreciation the continued work of Lake supporting countries on the process of formulating and implementing the NAPs. The limited assistance received by some countries from delivery partners in developing proposals for implementing the policies, projects, and the programs identified in their NAPs is one of the reasons for LDC countries for not completing their NAPs in an expedited manner. LEC should continue through its recommendation to the COP and its partnership with other bodies to push for the availability of financing to support not only the planning but implementation of NAP. We also appreciate the joint effort with the Adaptation Committee to undertake interrelated tasks to assess implementation of the Paris Agreement. We urge the Lake to be proactive in this process and provide technical and substantive inputs to the process to highlight the needs and challenges of least developed countries. I would also like to thank the Secretariat supporting the Lake for their tireless effort in supporting the work plan of the expert group. We would like to reiterate our continued collaborations with the Lake, always counting on their proactiveness and effective results. Thank you again for this opportunity to share views. As always, we have full confidence in your work and engagement with the LDC group and stand ready to work constructively with you to formulate and deliver national adaptation plans. With this, I would like to wish LEC for the happy 20th anniversary. Thank you, and Tasirili.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairing. We are indeed very proud to be joined today by a number of key actors for the LEG. With current and former members, representatives from UN and intergovernmental organizations. As a special honor, the High Representative for the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states, Mr. Courtney Rattray, who joined the UNOHRLLS in July. So, Mr. Rattray, welcome to the event and to the LEG community. We very much look forward to this event and our conversation and exchange. So, without further ado, I would like to invite now His Excellency to take the floor.
Distinguished LEG members, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure for me to join you as you commemorate this 20th anniversary of the Least Developed Countries Expert Group. And I do want to apologize from the outset because I will be unable to stay with you for the duration of this important event. As you may know, my office advocates for the pressing needs of the 1.1 billion people living in the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states, to ensure their priorities remain high on the international agenda. I'm very grateful to have a strong ally in this endeavor, namely the Least Developed Countries Expert Group. Today, we pay tribute to the 2 decades of expert support by the LEG. The hope that still exists in the world today, that it is not too late, that we can still step back from the cliff's edge, that hope is based on the unstinting work of experts and scientists. The work of the LEG has been invaluable to the least developed countries in their efforts to adapt to climate change, to reduce vulnerabilities, and indeed to build their resilience. We all know, many of us from first-hand experience, that climate risks and impacts are becoming ever more severe. This is most true for LDCs and small island developing states, and in particular for the most vulnerable people in our countries. Just a few days ago, we heard from the UN Secretary General about the importance of keeping the 1.5-degree goal alive. He reminded COP participants of the importance of adaptation and that protecting vulnerable communities from climate change impacts must happen in parallel to rapid decarbonization. Providing technical support and guidance to the poorest countries to accelerate their adaptation efforts has been at the core of the work of the LEG since 2001. All LDCs have benefited from their guidance and support on adaptation, which includes addressing urgent needs under national adaptation programs of action and identifying medium and longer-term adaptation planning and implementation through the formulation and implementation of national adaptation plans. The LEG has provided support in different ways, including global outreach through the NAP Expos. These raise awareness while promoting an exchange of experience and furthering new partnerships, and also via the provision of direct support to countries through workshops on the many aspects of the NAP. Colleagues, the urgency to act is becoming ever more evident. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote that we should adopt the pace of nature, as her secret is patience. But I fear that our patience is being stretched to breaking point. We must act now to protect our communities, our children, marginalized groups, and those already disadvantaged due to socioeconomic or health challenges. Tangible support in terms of finance, capacity, and technology is urgently needed. This was reflected powerfully and brilliantly by the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, at the beginning of this week. She said the failure to fund adaptation measures was being measured in lives and livelihoods in our communities, which is not only immoral, but it is unjust. And she's not wrong. The time to honor key promises is upon us, especially as we look to the future of the LDCs and the next program of action for the decade ahead. Both the LEG and the UNFCCC played a big role in the overall implementation of the Istanbul Program of Action, which, as you may know, is drawing to a close. And I'm confident this will remain the case under the new 10-year Program of Action for the LDCs. The outcome document is being negotiated in New York as we speak and will be adopted in Doha, Qatar in January 2022. Accelerated support is therefore needed on all fronts. Adaptation is a critical part of this, both for the LDCs and for the small island developing states. I will do my part to support these nations in this critical endeavor, and I'm grateful for the work that you have done and continue to do on their behalf. I thank you so much.
So, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those encouraging talks. So, dear guests and dear colleagues, we will now speed travel through the 20 years of the leg in a presentation. So, Secretariat, please. Can show the presentation.
Dear colleagues,
Serving on the LDC expert group.
first, let me take this opportunity to thank you all for coming with us to celebrate on the 20 years birthday of the LEC, the oldest constituent bodies at UNFCCC.
Sorry, Chair, because it's not showing properly. Where is that coming from?
Not technical.
Should be here, no? Video coming from? Where is the video coming from?
I will take you on the journey of the lake in supporting the LDCs. Yeah, triggered by the finding of the third assessment report of the IPCC, became more evident that the world need to adapt to climate change. Recognizing the vulnerability and special circumstances of the least developed countries, at its seventh session in Marrakesh, the COP adopted the LDCs work program, Decision 5 CB7. This program most substantial support that has yet been given to the LDCs. There is LDCF decision and also decision for the lake in the subsequent COP decision after that, mandate to provide technical guidance and advice to LDCs for the preparation and implementation of the NABs. Guidelines for the preparation of the NAB at 22, NABA program launch event in the Dhaka, Bangladesh in September. In 2005, mandate extend for additional 3 years, 2005, 2007, also by COP decision. Technical paper established. Technical paper established to support NABA preparation and the design of the implementation of the NABs. In 2006, online local coping strategies database. 2007, organized stock-taking meeting on NABA preparation and implementation in September. The mandate of the lake again extend for an additional 3 years, 2008, 2010, publication of step-by-step guide for implementation NABA. Sorry for this. 5 regional training workshop in implementing NABA in Tanzania, Mali, Laos, and Democratic Republic. The NABA is designed to offer LDCs an opportunity to take a comprehensive approach working towards transformation.
Let me just.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Come back.
Okay, I will help you.
2010. Yeah, in 2010, the NAB established in COP 16 in Cancun, in Mexico. Yeah, as I said, the NAB designed to offer the LDCs an opportunity to take a comprehensive approach working towards transformational change in their capacity to address adaptation. NAB take medium and long-term approach to reducing vulnerabilities to the adverse effect of climate change. That is integrated with the national development planning process and its strategies. In 2011, the LEC developed a NAB guidelines and also the GCF operational guidance, country parties using thematic funding windows, UN organization and other intergovernmental organizations also have called to provide information on their activities to support the NAB process. The LEC has introduced on its annual report on this very progress, assessing how each UN organization is advancing in supporting the countries. In 2012, the LEC developed technical guidelines for the formulation and implementation of the National Adaptation Plan and organized an expert meeting to review guidelines. First NAB Expo launched in 2013. In 2014, the first regional workshop on NAB. In 2015, the mandate of the LEC was extended at COP21 at Paris, the Paris decision. In 2020, Stocktake meeting convened by the LDCs, by the LEC, and the year of the LEC virtual meeting. So the LEC help and continue support the LDCs using following modalities like training, workshop, open NAB, technical guidance, technical paper, NAB Expo, mobilization of a wide range of stakeholders and partners, different modalities to help and support the LDCs, and also the LEC continue to respond to the need of the LDCs. So apologize for the technical issue, and thank you for this journey with us with the LEC since 2001 and since 2001 to 2021. 20 years, the LEC support the LDCs and also as well as other developing countries to formulate their NABs, and also now the LEC working in close collaboration with different organizations to support and address the gaps and needs for the LDCs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I am pleased to have with us today a number of representatives from UN agencies that have been working with the LEC. So, welcome to our panelists. Now, I give the floor to Mr. Paul Desanke, who will moderate this session. Please, Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Glad to be here and glad to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. I've been involved in supporting the LDCs since 2001, so I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to work with a lot of fantastic colleagues. So I'm glad that you're able to join us as we celebrate these 20 years. At this crucial moment in the negotiations here in Glasgow, I would like to, of course, thank the LEC for the excellent support that they've been giving, as well as the contributions they have been making to the negotiations amidst their very busy schedules with the heads of state and so forth. I know we have limited time, so I'll jump straight to it. May I invite our panelists to please come to the podium, and then we'll get started. You know who you are. We apologize for the technical difficulties with the slideshow and so forth. We've been having technical difficulties in different rooms, but I'm glad that the materials will be available for you to enjoy at your own leisure afterwards, so you can follow the slideshow. And as the chair said at the beginning, this is the beginning of a whole year of celebrations and remembrances of the various work that we do in the LDCs. So we hope that during the next session and during the NAP Expo, hopefully if it happens next year and so forth, we'll have more opportunities to reflect on the fantastic work that the lake does. So now that we're all up here, it's my pleasure to invite Chizu Ches Ayoki from the GCF. Just checking if you're listening. From the GEF, they manage the Least Developed Countries Fund, so a very long-term partner with the LDC, so we're very glad to have you, Ches. How would you describe the status of the LDCF to the LDCs on adaptation? Can you please share some lessons from the NAPAs and how you have supported the LDCs advance in their work on adaptation? So over to you, Ches.
Thank you, Paul. Is the microphone on?
It's on.
Oh, I have to take this off. Okay, thank you. Now everything is broadcast. Good evening, colleagues, and before I get started, I would like to wish you all a happy birthday. Where I come from, when you turn 20, that is, you become an adult. So I think this is a momentous occasion, and we're very happy to be invited to this event. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the LEG as well as CCC Secretariat colleagues for the collaboration extended so far. And as we, the LDCF, the Least Developed Countries Fund, supports activities in the LDCs. So I had prepared a presentation, but I'm not going to use it, as you suggested. So I'm just going to reflect on the support that we have been providing to the LDCs. And listen, I think within the past 10 years, a lot has been happening, and we have done quite a bit of support to the LDCs. And in particular, I would say in the current GF period, which started in 2018, we have come up with a priority, if you will, that we will leave no LDCs behind in terms of the provision of support for resources to support your adaptation priorities. And as you all know, we started out first by supporting the NAPA preparations and the NAPA implementation. And eventually, we have done quite a number of those, and those have also turned out to be quite successful. But then countries started to really look into more medium and longer term adaptation priorities, and I think that point was raised by my previous speakers in the previous panel. And we have done quite a bit of work, actually in collaboration with GCF, that there is good mechanism to support countries in their effort to prepare the NAPs, but also to then implement some of the priorities that are arising. So at this point, I think it's fair to say that based on the lessons as well as experiences, there is good collaboration that the GCF readiness support can provide the NAP preparations, and we support the implementation of the priorities. So I would say that's one of the good developments that has happened based on the years of support we have provided. And in terms of some other, recent findings of how are we doing in terms of impact, and how are we doing in terms of being able to be responsive to guidance coming from parties in the COP. We're happy to report that our independent evaluation recently did a program evaluation, and it did find that the support that the LDCF can provide to the countries, that is really highly relevant to be able to COP guidance and decisions that are given to the GEF, but also highly relevant to enable the LDCs to be able to meet the COP guidance as well as decisions that are relevant to the LDCs themselves. So I think that's a very good element to highlight. And another thing that we have found so far from the evaluation is that one of the key elements for quite a number of support we provide on the ground, community level engagement, as well as a lot of, we would say, ecosystem-based adaptation type initiatives, there is a gender element to it, right? And we have been assessed that the overall gender performance of the portfolio of LDC projects have improved very much. So that's another good element that I think as a key lessons learned that we would like to be able to support further. Some elements that I think we want to continue to enhance upon, we have done quite a bit of effort to build private sector engagement on adaptation action. And I think despite a lot of good faith as well as targeted efforts, this is an area where we do know that a lot more targeted and concerted efforts in partnership with LDCs as well as entrepreneurs, micro, small, medium-sized enterprises in the LDCs would really need to be done. And this is something that we're going to be focusing on much more moving forward. So I'd be happy to elaborate on any of these issues first, but those are some of the broad line key lessons learned, as well as what we're excited to support moving forward as we enter into I guess the adulthood of the leg, but as well as the new phase of the LDCF, which will start in July of 2022. So thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Ches, and we look forward to interacting with Jeff many years to come. They have built up a lot of experience in supporting the LDCs, and we look forward to the evaluation. I think over time we have developed a very close relationship between the Jeff, its implementing entities, agencies, and so forth, and the countries. And we're very much on a first-name basis with everybody. So I'm very glad at this point to invite Pa, Mr. Pa Usman Jaju from the GCF. He used to be a chair of the LDC group and the Minister of Environment for the Gambia, etc. So we're very glad to have somebody from the LDC that understands the issues, can talk one-on-one with anybody from the LDCs. So Pa, you're always welcome in this group, and then you have a friend. We have a friend in the GCF, which is something that we value very much. We're the leg, but can you walk us through some of the successes and key lessons that you have gathered in the support that you're providing for the LDCs through the readiness program in terms of formulating and preparing the NAPs in the LDCs? Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, distinguished lead members, and ladies and gentlemen. Let me join others in congratulating the leg for this special anniversary. We really appreciate the fruitful collaboration that we had between the GCF Secretariat and the leg, and which has been really mutually reinforcing. As you know, the GCF is committed to this partnership, and it is guided by the board decisions, which actually has mandated us to provide funding to developing countries, and particularly on adaptation, ensuring that the urgent needs of countries are met, particularly the least developed countries. Now, we are also committed to balancing adaptation in the portfolio, having a 50-50 balance between adaptation and mitigation. We are striving towards that. Currently, we have 48-50-52 between adaptation and mitigation. But the governing, our updated strategic plan has also given us the mandate to pursue balancing adaptation and mitigation. Now, in terms of our support to LDCs, we have committed 2.9 billion US dollars out of the 10 billion in the portfolio. And this is as a result of 77 projects that are being implemented by the LDCs. With respect to adaptation, we have 35 LDCs that have access adaptation projects, and on adaptation planning, 24 adaptation planning projects have been approved for LDCs. 2 have completed implementation and 21 are currently under implementation. With readiness, we have provided 145 readiness grants worth $110 million that have been approved to support LDCs in various areas in terms of capacity development, pipeline development, policy and regulatory frameworks, including support to the private sector and also supporting identification of accredited entities that are direct access entities in LDCs. We just want to conclude by reiterating our readiness to continue engaging with the LEG, and we closely follow the discussions within the COP with respect to the LEG mandate, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration with the LEG in benefit of the LDCs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Par, and we look forward to working with you and interacting with you. The GCF is a key partner in supporting the LDCs, and there's tremendous amount of support, both financial and non-technical, and we hope that the LDCs will continue to use you and utilize you to produce great quality adaptation plans and results on the ground. So thank you for your intervention. Next, I have Ms. Rulato Camilla from UNDP. The LEG works with a lot of different UN agencies. There are a number of these that have been very active right from the beginning, and UNDP, UNEP, FAO, etc. are among those that have been extremely active and very present in many LDCs, and many countries have a UNDP office, of course, so many countries do rely on UNDP. But early on, they created a global support program to support countries on building a capacity for the process to formulate and implement NAPs. So Rulato, can you walk us through perhaps some of the key lessons and successes of the work that UNDP has done, as well as through the NAP GSP? Over to you.
Can you hear me all right? With all the technical difficulties, I just wanted to check.
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, everyone, distinguished LEG members, colleagues. Really honored to be part of this celebratory moment. Congratulations from us as well on behalf of UNDP. And I'm really honored to join the LDC's expert group, UNFCCC and partners in celebrating this milestone. Before directly addressing the question you asked, Paul, I just wanted to say that UNDP has had the privilege of working with LDCs on adaptation, especially under the development mandate. UNDP has been very acutely aware of adaptation action as a conduit to the SDG agenda, with the multiple co-benefits of adaptation action to the countries. And from that perspective, and we know that as it's estimated by 2030, that climate change will drive another additional 100 million people into poverty. And you know, the LDCs have always sort of been at bearing the brunt of much of the vulnerabilities that climate change exposes, and the impacts have been to the vulnerable countries and communities. And in that sense, UNDP has been building on the experiences and lessons from the adaptation portfolio over the last couple of decades, you know, with support in over 100 countries, both in investments on the ground, mobilizing financing from vertical funds like GEF, and more recently the Green Climate Fund, but also really putting adaptation and trying to help countries put adaptation at the heart of decision making, policy planning and investment making through the NAPs and now the NDCs. So in that sense, UNDP is very keen to advance a whole of society approach to accelerate adaptation, including crowding in private sector, as was earlier mentioned, which is critical to come in to fill the gap for adaptation finance. And in light of this particular milestone and moment, I thought it's to highlight some of the successes and some of the impact with the privilege of the work we have done with partners, including the agencies that are here. We've worked with FAO and WHO, UN Environment, with donors like the GEF, GCF, but also bilateral donors from CEDA and OSCE to EU, Germany, and others. And I wanted to highlight a few of these successes to LDCs. In the adaptation portfolio of UNDP since 2002, we've been able to support about 45 LDCs, 33 of which are in Africa, with about 190 adaptation projects. Over 90 of these are completed, another 50 are underway. And a few of the results that I'd like to share with this group here is in the 90 completed projects, we've reached about 10 million beneficiaries. Over 720,000 have had access to improved climate resilient agriculture services. We have about over 4.5 million who have increased access to climate information and early warning systems. Over 20,000 hectares of agriculture land that's been brought under climate resilient agriculture practices and management. And with the projects underway, the ones that are under implementation, we hope to reach another 16 million beneficiaries. About 3.7 of those would lead to having improved access to, again, climate resilient agriculture. But we're really talking about across the board around ecosystems-based adaptation, water and food security, climate information, early warning systems, and really focusing on and securing lives and livelihoods, especially as, again, was earlier highlighted in the most vulnerable countries and communities. Couple of examples of projects I also wanted to share in Nepal. A lot of the land degradation, rising temperatures, lower river flows have been a huge concern for the country, already tackling with development issues. And UNDP, with the support from the Jeff's Least Developed Countries Fund, has been working with the government of Nepal with a 42 million grant adaptation project, focusing on securing sustainable livelihoods and fostering food security. In Africa, with the project underway with funding from Green Climate Fund of 32 million and a co-financing of over 100 million from an agricultural investment from the government, we're really looking at scaling up, modernizing technologies, looking at sustainable growing techniques, but really climate risk integrated across the value chain and integrating private sector. So we're starting to see a lot more scale in our projects and our work with LDCs, which is really very much welcome. Of course, there's lots more to be done. From the perspective of the National Adaptation Planning, Paul, the question you asked, since 2000,
apologies for that, but maybe we'll get Sri Lata back. But UNDP, as I said, has been quite present in all of the efforts that the lake has conducted through the years, through the activities, whether it's training workshops, and NAP expos, etc. But they have been joined by a number of other organizations, and the risk of mentioning a few is that I'm liable to skip a few. There is Global Water Partnership, WMO, WHO, UNCDF, UNDRR, World Bank. So it's a long list of these organizations that have partnered with the lake quite successfully. So now, but it's a pleasure now to invite Julia Wolf from the FAO. They have been supporting NAPs on agriculture for quite a while, and they've developed a number of supplements, both for fisheries, agriculture, etc. But Julia, can you share some experiences from an FAO perspective on the sort of AgNAP as well as the newer support program that you're developing, the Scala?
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. And I'm really honored to be able to speak with you today and share this very important moment. FAO has been following, I think, the whole 20 years, and Also thanks to other colleagues in FAO, in particular from fisheries and forestry. They were earlier on. I feel like I've been for 10 years in the process, so I only have like half an adult of experience. But that has been really a very important occasion to work so closely with the LAG members and UNFCCC. I feel that it has been a trusted group where there's a dialogue and exchange. I always would say it's like tango, no? So if you look at the different birthdays, what we've seen, 2001 was a game changer with the NAPAS, where as a first response, and also thanks to Jeff, there was the first generation of agriculture-related projects that were really kind of also making a change to a convention that was conceived as a mitigation convention in the first place, right? So 2001 is definitely a big game changer for agriculture or nature-based solutions, as we call them today, and then 2010, which is the birth date in Cancun after NAPS, where you actually have a whole shift of not only the short-term planning into longer-term planning, which is extremely important for the agriculture agenda to recognize that change happens not in a year, but actually over longer term, and it definitely needs investment. As a matter of fact, now if you look at the cost of adaptation to climate risk, is 10 times greater than actually the available finance. And that's something that has been going on, and where FAO tried to play along with the LAG group. And that's why I say the tango, for example, the 2012 like publication on the LAG guidance was extremely important for us to pick it up and say, okay, well, now we can dig deeper and we can develop guidelines with also partners, but also together with countries who have been reviewing the guidelines for agriculture, fishery, forestry in more detail. So this is what I really like about the kind of exchange, and also like your really transparent process and kind of sharing the work program, the process, the progress on a yearly basis to then be able to see how we can better respond and provide more support to countries. In terms of what we've been doing, I would say one of the key milestones, like from an FAO perspective, who has been working with Jeff from 2001 with GCF funding, in particular readiness funding from 2016, and now with adaptation funds, with bilateral funds. But two key programs I'd like to mention, since you asked, Paul, is a program we were doing with UNDP from 2014 to 2020, where we supported 11 countries, but it was like least developed countries and developing countries on integrating agriculture and national adaptation plans. But it was a meaningful program for us in terms of really understanding how to proceed from a more governance development support to really sector aspect, sector planning, and also this very important lesson in terms of vertical planning, because a lot of the national planning gets stuck at the national level, but it needs this additional effort in terms of vertical planning, also for the very important fact, which is very strong here at COP26 in terms of inclusiveness. So, and I'm not talking only about farmers or small-scale farmers, I'm talking about indigenous peoples, like women-headed household, and other like more vulnerable groups. What I'd like to join in, you mentioned gender. It's actually something we really noted, and I would compliment the LAG for in terms of making progress to really look into gender specific perspectives and processes. That has been really a key and has a lot of potential. We also started a new program with UNDP and German funding, which is called Scaling Up Climate Ambition on Land Use and Agriculture. It's started this year. It's for 5 years. We also have 4 least developed countries. And we really believe in working on both like least developed countries and developing countries, because it's so important to learn, for countries to peer learn. And that's also something I'd like to really compliment on the NAB Expo, has been extremely important. I know we all suffered for the last 1.5 years that we couldn't do that, but the continuous exchange, and also to create the NAB technical workshop, where we have the opportunity between the different agencies to exchange and really be more synergetic, in terms of the guidance we provide, the countries we support. So there's a lot of things that happened over the last couple of years that creates this group as a go-to group where you can find not only peers, but you can have the honest exchange, and you also find friends to some extent. So I really, I have to say, I'm really emotional about the group because it is a very important group for me in the UNFC process. Last not least, let me say something about the future. So FAO has actually developed a new strategic framework which will start next year from 2022 to 2031. It's a 10-year plan. And there's really a very strong focus on least developed countries, like under the Leave No One Behind, on Leave No Country Behind. There's a couple of initiatives attached to that, like a hand-in-hand initiative, and it's trying to focus the attention on the least developed countries, landlocked countries, etc. So I see a great opportunity to work with the partners here in the room and others, and with the LAG and UNFCCC to really do focused action, help to scale up implementation on adaptation, and in particular on agricultural land use, agri-food system. It has many names, nature-based solution. So thanks for giving me the opportunity, and I'm happy to be part of this celebration today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julia. I know we're talking a lot about UN agencies or affiliated agencies and so forth, but a lot of countries, including the LDCs themselves, have put in a lot of effort and provided a lot of support to the work of the LEG through hosting LEG meetings twice a year at the NAP Expos and so forth. So we do appreciate that support very much. But I also wanted to mention two countries in particular that helped launch the LDC work program through support to the preparation of the NAPAs through the LDCF. So Canada was amongst the early countries that came forward and enabled the whole NAPA process to take place. But since then, we've had generous support from various donors, Ireland, for instance, Norway, Germany, and so forth. So we do appreciate that support very much. I know I've missed a few countries, but please forgive me. I'm off script at the moment. But at this point, let me hand over now to Anne Hamo. Anne Hamo runs the NAP Global Network, which is also a collection of different donors at the moment that are providing sort of invaluable support to the countries in this process. So Anne, please tell us about some of the successes from the Global Network. Thank you. Over to you.
Paul. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting the NAP Global Network to share some observations and also share in this congratulatory moment. I think there's been 20 years of really fantastic work, really important work. And the NAP Global Network is a relative newcomer and a bit of an outsider as a non-UN agency in some ways, but I think that it's been a real opportunity to explore some really unique collaborations with the agencies. The network was established at the end of 2014, and what we do is we support developing countries in advancing their NAP processes through peer learning, tailored technical support, and then knowledge generation, synthesis, and sharing. And we have the goal, and we are committed to having at least 50% of our support go to LDCs and SIDS. What this has meant practically, for example, in our tailored technical support, is that we have supported 20 LDCs in advancing their NAP processes. And one of the really sort of interesting things that we've been observing, and I think we all know from the LEG technical guidelines, how important it is that NAP processes really be sort of country-owned and defined and driven, is that we're offering support at various stages of the NAP process, and it can look like very different things on the ground. And so, for example, in this last year, what we've done is we've supported Burkina Faso in developing its first ever progress report of its NAP, which it submitted over 5-6 years ago now. And the idea then is to take stock of what's been achieved, what wasn't achieved, and integrate this into the next NAP that they're going to be developing. We also supported Somalia in developing a NAP framework where they would lay out the vision, the goals, and the objectives, and the key themes that they'd like to pursue in developing their full NAP with the support of GCF and UNDP. And so it's a bit sort of a a signpost or a North Star for their NAP process. And that was a really interesting experience as well. And we had the opportunity to learn from other countries that had undertaken similar exercises. Malawi, we heard the growing importance of private sector, and so we worked with Malawi in developing a private sector engagement strategy for their NAP process. In Haiti, we developed a communication strategy for their NAP process to be able to communicate with different stakeholders about the different adaptation priorities that the government was really going to be pursuing over the medium term. And then in Chad, we also heard about the importance of gender. And there we undertook a gender analysis to inform the NAP process. And in particular, look at the institutions and the knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and practices that's taking place in these institutions so that we can address some of the barriers to making NAP processes gender responsive. So that gives you an idea of the different types of support that we provide, and that is very much tailored to the needs and where countries are at in their NAP process. Just a couple of things to to wrap up. Some lessons that we're observing and through the support, and some of these have been touched upon already. The first one is that we have really observed the importance of soft skills in making NAP processes really work. And what we mean by that is people with solid facilitation and knowledge brokering skills that, that can make all the difference between a NAP process that muddles along for a number of years and one that just accelerates and generates a lot of energy and momentum. And so we do feel like that is an area for investment going forward. I think that there are also still challenges with respect to making sure that the NAP is actually respected and recognized and not completed and sidestepped and put aside by other agencies and frankly donors. And so there is, I think, a lot of work to be done in terms of socializing the NAP and making sure that actors across government and donor partners really understand the value and the role of a NAP in driving conversations and investments. We heard also, and this came up in a conversation I had with a minister from Burkina Faso this morning, of the importance of vertical integration, making these links from the national to the subnational. I think we've heard from a number of countries who might complete their NAP that they think, okay, well, actually, to make this happen, the action happens at the local level. We need to really make sure that these links are real. And how do we actually operationalize this quickly? And so the lesson for us has really been about how do you make sure that you're engineering these links between the national and the subnational from the very beginning of your NAP process. And it's not something you think about once it's completed and you move to implementation. Civil society engagement, we've heard this as well, so I won't belabor that, but we've heard over and over that this isn't just about consultation. It is really genuinely about engagement and giving civil society actors a seat at the decision-making table in the NAP process. And then finally, gender analysis works. We hear that NAP processes need to be gender responsive, and we've generally encountered a lot of support and openness and willingness to really operationalize this. But sometimes it's not clear what the actual next step needs to be. And so we found that supporting countries in conducting gender analyses give a really useful action framework. And as a result, we've seen some really exciting institutional relationships get established and some really gender-informed and gender-responsive NAPs being developed. And so going forward, we're going to continue providing this kind of support. We look forward to it. And this year alone, it's been great to have some of our donors step up with renewed funding and some new donors. So this year alone, we had Canada and Germany, Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the United States demonstrate their ongoing commitment for the NAP process. And so we look forward to working with the LEG and the other agencies on this panel. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anne. And please join me in thanking the panelists for such wonderful news. Thank you. What you all don't see is a doomsday clock in front of me that's counting down. So we have about 3.5 minutes. So let me very quickly hand over to the lecturer for the rest of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you to the panelists for their very insightful and interesting interventions. So we at the LEG appreciate very much the support that you provided to the group and to the LDCs in particular. So with this, on behalf of my fellow LEG members, I would like to thank you all for your participation and your reflection on the future of our work. Now, I would like to invite everyone present today to sign on this poster in remembrance of the LEG's 20th anniversary. And we also invite you to join us in the reception outside of this room. So thank you very much. But before we leave, I want to remember that this is only the start of our 20th anniversary celebration. So stay tuned for any announcement on this year celebration. But finally, we have collected some voice of people who have been closely involved in the work of the LEG. And why we invite you to the reception, so please feel free to have a look at the video while we are having a good drink outside. Thank you very much. Yeah.